Good morning. I'm Janie Parrish, the director at the Wadsworth Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to try to be kind of serious this morning, but before I do, I got a little hair going here in the wrong direction. Anyways, but before I do, I got to introduce my wonderful co-host, Michael Reynolds. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Janie.
Okay, we're excited to be here. Now we're going to talk about something extremely serious today, and it's about healthy living, healthier than what we've been doing, what I've been doing. And so we have three wonderful medical professionals here with us today from Summa. So I'm going to introduce them. I'm going to start with Dr. Hall because his name is the easiest to introduce. Good morning, Dr. Hall.
Dr. Wells, thank you.
Wells, oh
Yep.
my gosh.
That's okay.
Is Dr. Hall out in the hall or something?
And
We
that was
fired him.
the easy one.
That was the easy one. I'm so sorry.
We
Oh,
fired him.
Oh.
No.
And then we have Tess Lockhart, how'd I do, who's our registered dietitian, our program,
Yes.
lead program. We're going to tease you about that. Okay, so here comes the hard one, but I'm going to do it. This is Dr. Zografakis.
Perfect.
Really?
Yep, nailed
Wow. So from now on, it's going to be Dr. Z.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we did it once.
Not a
Okay,
problem. Not
all
a problem.
righty. So, so let's get started because we got a lot to talk about. Summa is now part of kind of a nationwide effort where health systems are now working more on weight management than ever before, and because of the ramifications for your health. And so we're lucky enough to have Summa Health Weight Management Institute here in Wadsworth that's going to have a grand opening next Friday, June 21st. We're going to do a lunch and learn from noon to 1, and then ribbon cutting with Mayor Robin Labaugh, and then a tour. So we've got lots going on out there, but we want to learn about the program. So let's start with Dr. Wells. Got it this
Got it.
time.
There you go.
Okay. Now you're part of the non-surgical team.
I am.
Okay. So tell us what that means.
So I think when you look at this disease of obesity in 2019, I think the way that we approach this with the most up-to-date therapy is it starts with lifestyle, and that's where we involve both our dietitians, our psychologists, and surgery is a fantastic tool. And I think is we have now a combination that I think gives patients a very successful both short and long-term way to manage their weight. And I think it's determined, people will say, do I do non-surgical or surgical? And I think that's determined as they come into our center, because a lot of times as we see patients non-surgically, we'll find out that as they go through the program, because of their genetics, because of their disease, that surgery is a nice tool. It's a very safe tool. And that's one of the myths that's out there today. So
Yes.
we have a comprehensive program that we're bringing to Wadsworth, that we bring all of our professionals together to treat this disease. And by the way, in 2013, the American Medical Association said it is a disease, but we're still behind on our education of physicians. Even today, many medical schools don't have curriculum to teach about this disease.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
an eye-opening
Yes.
stat.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Holy smokes. Tess, tell us what you do.
My role at the Weight Management Institute is seeing patients preoperatively, postoperatively, and following up on their vitamins. So I do a lot of group education, individual counseling, pre-op and post-op, and also following up on how they're doing post-op. So really just making sure that those patients are getting everything that they need and the education that they need to make sure that they're going to do really well after weight loss surgery.
Very nice. How about you, Dr. Z, because you're part of the surgical team.
Right. So, Summa thankfully has been an innovator in this, and we've been a leader in the area since 2004 when we started the program. We've been
Wow.
fortunate to do this for 15 years. So just to make some of the comments, over the years, as we have expanded services within the system, one of the first things that we started was the surgical program and the medical program for weight loss. And no different than you can see the three of us, whether it's a medical discipline, surgical discipline, or our allied health colleagues with our dietitians. This is a multi-pronged attack to treating a very complex disease process. And so whether or not it's diabetes, high blood pressure, sleep apnea, as you mentioned at the beginning, we're going to have a serious talk. I think this is a great talk. This is a fun talk. This is about reclaiming your life and getting your life back. And so I view this as about the best thing that we can talk about and the most fun thing that we can talk about. people are often struggling with many diseases, as we mentioned: diabetes, high blood pressure, sleep apnea, cholesterol, joint pain, heartburn. All these are directly related to being overweight. And over the last 20 years, especially in the state of Ohio, where now almost 1 out of 3 people is clinically overweight, we have an epidemic that we need to work on together and collaboratively. And thankfully, Summa has been a leader and an innovator from that perspective, but also expanded into the Wadsworth market. We have 5 areas that we go to, whether it's Wadsworth, Greene, Barberton, Hudson, and Akron City. So we really do our best within the community in Northeast Ohio to serve all of the areas and make sure that we bring the expertise in a multidisciplinary approach, because we need all the team members together. You can't solve any problem on its own. You can't treat any disease process as an isolated entity. And so being able to transition patients, starting from medical, where we work on behavioral modification and exercise, our psychology colleagues, we have several psychologists as well to really complete the entire endeavor. Tess and her colleagues with regards to the dietary component. And then if we need to get to the next step, the surgical tool. All of these little different tools in the toolbox work together so that we can have a good outcome and treat diseases successfully.
So there's truly, obviously, you're truly striving for synergy amongst all the different non-surgical, surgical, and the dietary. Can you walk us through maybe a situation where someone probably is going to end up having a surgical end result, from beginning to end, how that happens or what happens?
Sure. So a lot of what we do is dictated by insurance. Okay, and so one of when we started with Dr. Wells at the very beginning was to help navigate our patients through the insurance requirements. Some people, and just to take one step back, in 1991, so we're looking at years ago, 30 years ago almost, we had the guidelines instituted by the National Institute of Health of who is a surgical candidate. And that would be based on what we call BMI, or body mass index. And that's a calculator you can find on our website, which is summahealth.org/weight loss. You can find a calculator online to put in your height and your weight and calculate that. If your BMI is between 35 and 39.9, with one of those 3 that we discussed, diabetes, high blood pressure, or sleep apnea, you qualify for surgery. Also over 40. But to make it simple, roughly 80 to 100 pounds overweight is going to qualify you for surgery. And we're going to help you navigate the specifics. But so what we do is no different than training for a marathon. The goal of the diet and exercise before surgery is not necessarily to lose weight to not qualify, but it's to begin the lifestyle changes, the behavioral modifications, the lifelong strategies that we need to do. And doing it in a one-off fashion isn't going to be successful. That's why we have the entire team. I always tell people that, from a surgical perspective, while that's obviously very important for a 2-hour period of time and an episodic experience, the team approach from Dr. Wells and the dietitians and the psychologists that are going to last lifelong are what separate our program as a comprehensive program. We've been fortunate that the health system from the beginning has been invested in making sure that we have a multidisciplinary approach and have all the team members to be able to do that. So if you make the decision to go into surgery at the beginning, which is what the data supports if you're in that 80 to 100 pounds overweight, then we have a very complex program. But the majority of the people may go through it in a different fashion. They may need to have their insulin levels monitored for insulin resistance, et cetera. And Dr. Wells, who's, and I'll let him speak on the Obesity Medicine Fellowship and Certification that he has and his colleagues have, are able to take patients from the beginning when they're really concerned about their health, communicating with their primary care physicians, family doctors, families, family members, et cetera. We want to be able to be that safety net to be able to start the process, and then Dr. Wells is going to take it from there with regards to the medical and the psychological and dietary components.
Okay.
So there's a lot of stigmas that our patients face, since most medical professionals aren't really trained in medical school to manage this disease of obesity, not even looking at obesity. It's always disease because it is a disease, we know that. And so the stigma is sometimes the shaming. You go to your doctor and he says, eat less and exercise more. That's a very simplistic statement to look at a very complicated disease. So when we're seeing our patients, and also one thing I want to just tell 2 little notes that I think will put things in perspective. In the last 40 years, we've seen a 400% increase in obesity and a 600% increase in diabetes. Those numbers are staggering. So what's behind this? What is it? We start with a $1.7 trillion food environment that's the second biggest part of our economy. And we could get into the politics and there are, that there's so many misinformation that's communicated through the press about, today this is good to eat, tomorrow it's not good to eat.
Right.
So there's a lot of confusion. So part of the job when we see our new patients, number one, is put them at ease and treat them with the respect they deserve, to treat this disease with the respect it deserves. And then as we look through the different disease processes, go through their weight history, you look at the genetics, and I would say the genetics are so important. The studies were done probably 30 years ago that proved that adoptive children 100% of the time follow the weight tendencies of their biological parents, not their adoptive parents, and that was done in Denmark.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of facts out there. There's also a lot of myths, both of the diet industry, the diet supplement industry, and the exercise industry. One of the myths that I tell patients is probably 90% of your weight loss is going to be determined by your meal planning and your stress eating, with or without surgery. Exercise is fantastic, but not for weight loss. And that surprises a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I could get on the 40 different variables that are improved with exercise. It's very important, but it doesn't start there for the weight loss. So as we take our patients through, part of our job, not only looking at them individually medically, but also getting them ready for surgery mentally. And as I tell them, I say this surgery has been deemed by one of the most prestigious hospitals in the country, Mass General, that it's a safer surgery than gallbladder surgery, because we have surgeons now that are fellowship trained. Just like an open heart surgeon, our bariatric surgeons are fellowship trained. They stand out. In the old days, it was general surgeons, and there were some good ones and there were some bad ones. We're fortunate to have 4 fellowship trained surgeons that now their mortality rates or complication rates are as good, if not better, than gallbladder surgery. No one would hesitate to take out your gallbladder, but they would say, oh, can't do bariatric surgery because it's too risky. A lot of myths out there. So part of my job is to be a myth buster as we see our new patients. Absolutely.
Very nice. So then tell us about you stepping in. So you said that you see them pre-surgery and during the process of non-surgical. So tell us about your role then.
Correct. So I do see patients both preoperatively and postoperatively. I also do see them non-surgically as well. So my role, and also my colleagues, is to really help guide patients through making healthy food choices, coming up with a healthy meal plan that is not only healthy but also realistic, and making sure that it's something that not only that they understand, that's initiated by Dr. Wells and our other doctors, but also making sure that it's something that they can follow from that point forward, and that it's something that's going to benefit them long term, not only in terms of before surgery but also after surgery, so that they're ready.
So, and I believe that Summa has truly invested in this, the whole program, in every different aspect in 5 of your locations.
One of the things I was going to mention is when Dr. Zografakis and myself started in 2004, they modeled their program after Massachusetts General, Harvard Medical School. And Dr. Kaplan and his colleagues are world-renowned in their research and their leadership in the treatment of the disease. And I feel very fortunate that our multidisciplinary program mirrors what they do up in Boston, and we're able to bring that down to northeastern Ohio.
Very nice. So walk us through, so say, because I do go to the Wadsworth Summa Health Management, Weight Management. I have too many names in my head right now, and I'll always call him Dr. Hall. It's always going to be the way it goes.
So just call us all Dr. Hall.
That's right, absolutely.
Okay, that sounds good.
So actually, these guys are the ones I can blame for you not being able to go out and have margaritas with
That's
me, is what you're saying,
every
right?
one of them.
Okay.
Every one of them.
Not a cheat
Yeah.
meal, everyone.
Yeah. So before you moved to your new location, which is at Founders Hall by the hospital, I had called and made an appointment and went out. You were at a different area in the hospital, door 3. I remember door 3. And I was treated so well, and I lost 30 pounds. And
Good for you.
thank you. And I love it out there. I look forward to going, and I love the doctor and the nurse Dawn. I just very, very nice, very respectful. And because it's like an embarrassment to say, I need to lose weight. And, I don't understand people, like if you have another form of disease, say that you would have a cancer, and you're not embarrassed about that, but why is it that you're embarrassed about being overweight.
I think in general, people though have a hesitancy to say, "I need help."
Right, right.
You know,
I think so too.
You know, and in that case, even more so. So I mean, it's great to hear when you the passion that you speak with Dr. Wells about it not being embarrassed to make sure those people are treated, people that are coming to are treated correctly in this disease.
And I have noticed, I don't remember so much at your temporary spot, but at your permanent new spot, I've noticed that the chairs are big. You know, everything is like geared towards larger sized people. And I would think that if you went to a weight management institute and sat down and you pulled the chair up with you when you left, you know what I mean, because it was so tight, that's another embarrassment. So how thoughtful, whoever came up with that, you know, how thoughtful and respectful of people coming. Yeah.
You mentioned, misinformation. I know everyone here is, for the most part, at some point is on social media, and there's no question. I notice that on a very routine basis, where you'll see just incredible claims about whether it's do this and lose weight or don't eat this. I mean, is that a constant struggle for you guys to sort of fight against the misinformation there currently?
The social, I mean, the media in general. I mean, if we start out with the media, think about it. One research study showed on average we're advertised to 30 to 40 times a day on food. Okay, and they're not advertising on healthy food.
Right.
They when they hook us to their food, then we're a shareholder in their company. It's about how it works. And so we're dispelling a lot of myths when it comes to, you know, what is healthy, what is not healthy, the diet of the week. And I think we have to use science to support that, because if we don't, then we're no better than any supplement that is not regulated. And we also, we defend our surgery because there are so many myths about, well, it's an easy way out, or it's unsafe. Or, and again, going back 30, 40, 50 years, we came through a dark age of bariatric surgery where we were doing an entirely different surgery with not as well-trained surgeons. Now we have a tool that's safer than gallbladder surgery, and I always tell patients, don't fear the surgery, fear that weight when it increases your cancer and heart disease by more than 50%.
30, 40 years ago, we'll have to Google that, because that was well before our time.
Well before our time.
I'm a little older,
So I remember when I called for my appointment in January, and they said, are you interested in surgical or non-surgical? And I had said non-surgical. So what if you don't know? What happens there? What if you're going, oh, geez, I don't know. So how does that all come about where you decide which path to go down?
It's really an education. It's really our job to educate the patients. As in many times, patients might be afraid of surgery, and I tell them in our 6 months as we start the process, is we really incorporate this lifestyle, a way to eat. We look at stress eating. 7 out of 10 of our patients are stress eaters, and that could be from binge eating, could be boredom eating, it could be post-traumatic stress, and that's why our psychologists are all postdoc trained in emotional eating. But I also tell them, I said, in 6 months, we'll know what your body does. I just had a patient this morning that's been with me for 2.5 years, and I'm happy to say she's going. I think surgery will benefit her tremendously. She's lost 70 pounds, but she's got 200 to go. And now I think she's no longer fearful of the surgery. She has explored it, we've educated her, and so she's ready to take the next step.
Wow. Now tell us about your psychologist.
Well, we have several psychologists, Dr. Duncan and Dr. Rummel, that work tirelessly to help with our patients, because no different than everything Dr. Wells mentioned, or Dr. Hall, Dr. Wells.
You're going to be Dr. Hall from this point forward.
I am so
Dr.
sorry.
Wells. Dr. Wells, that's okay. We have that memory now. But they do a phenomenal job. This process doesn't start or end in any one time period, no different than anybody's life. And so just like the example that Dr. Wells used of the patient who's been with him for 2 years, it's an entire process, and no different than any experience. You have to feel comfortable with the environment. Hopefully our team, like you mentioned, whether it's walking in at the front desk with Dawn or the docs that are taking care of you, you have to feel comfortable through that whole process. And part of that is feeling comfortable not only with the staff, but with yourself, and making sure that we have these decisions, because as you mentioned, there's so many stigmas associated with weight. And you're right, if you had diabetes or you had blood pressure, nobody would tell you, oh, don't take that blood pressure pill, your blood pressure's fine.
Right.
They would say, hey, good job on maintaining your blood pressure. Instead, it's a little backwards that we treat it that way. So we really have to approach it from the entire spot. And whether it is post-traumatic stress disorders, whether it's interpersonal relationship issues, whether it's interpersonal struggles, any of those type of things, nothing's going to be fixed by one appointment, one office visit. So, so from a pre-surgical standpoint, or even introduction into the medical program, we have a defined entry evaluation, if you will. And then based on whatever issues may come to the surface during those evaluations, then we have multiple services we offer, whether it's group-based therapy, whether it's individual-based therapy, whether it's referring out to some of the psychiatric experts and psychological experts that we have within the system or within the community to be able to target a specific process. It's all about starting the process, maintaining the relationship throughout, and just making sure people are comfortable throughout the entire experience.
And I have really appreciated, they kind of let me choose my own program. You know what I mean? Like how often I want to come. Just everything about it, it's been back on me, so that somebody isn't telling me what to do, because I always kind of get annoyed with that.
Sure.
But it's helping me make my own choices. When do I want to see the psychologist? When do I want to see the dietitian? So I think for me, it's been a really good thing. Yeah.
And again, us having the multiple providers and multiple access points not only helps geographically within the community, but allows you the flexibility to say, I'm going to do it whenever I want to, as opposed to it's only Tuesday afternoon is your only option. So,
Right.
You know, we're blessed to be able to have. I don't think we have one of anything. I think we have. I always kind of call our program the Noah's Ark of programs, because we have 2 dietitians and 2 psychologists, and you know, at the time we had 2 surgeons, et cetera, but which we've expanded. But so you know, we have multiple providers in order to be able to reach out across all areas.
Well, the way the water's been in the rain recently, that arc may come in handy. Just
Right,
you know,
right.
you definitely have, we know that there's benefits from someone losing 70 pounds, just general health benefits. Do you also find stories of people that reduce medications and things like that when they have weight loss?
Absolutely. So we have that very well documented over the last several years. And again, pointing back to the website, it's been documented in the medical data, as Dr. Wells mentioned. But we publish our own outcomes book every year with regards to that, because we really don't do this for the number of pounds or the size of your genes or et cetera. We're doing this for medical comorbidity resolution. And so the ones that we measure are diabetes, high blood pressure, sleep apnea, heartburn, et cetera. And all that's documented. When you look at, and we track it in 2 different ways, completely resolved or improved. Because if you're on insulin, as an example, and you come off insulin and go to an oral medication, that's a dramatic improvement.
Sure.
Not only in your medication regimen, but I would expect that would translate to one of the tests that we check, what's called a hemoglobin A1C, which is a longer marker for sugar control. Same thing, excuse me, if you're on 4 different blood pressure medicines and go down to 1, those type of things. So we track all that on there, but all of those medical comorbidities have close to an 80% improvement rate. When you look at diabetes, we have a resolution rate over 60%, where 6 out of 10 people are cured. The most important thing about surgery is acting in a time-efficient manner. It is almost a 95% cure of diabetes if it's been diagnosed and treated within 5 years. So surgery is never the first step, right, for anything. We want to exhaust medical options before we get to surgical therapy. But if you're a new onset diabetic, type 2 diabetes, of course, not type 1, but type 2 diabetes that's weight-based, and you're diagnosed, your family doctor is going to put you on a dietary regimen. That may be a perfect entry into our medical program to start some of those relationships that you've already experienced so well. If that short amount of weight loss doesn't help, or we see you back a year later and we haven't moved the needle, then we go into plan B.
Okay.
But if we get to that year 3 mark of being a diabetic and we haven't been able to impact some of these either educational or exercise or food-based mechanisms that we're trying to initiate, if we haven't been successful, we really need to talk about surgery, because the clock does start ticking and you can have a dramatic improvement. And like Dr. Wells touched on, you can't live in a bubble. We talk about the potential side effects of surgery, or I may have to take a vitamin, or I may have to do this, but the potential risk of diabetes, especially poorly controlled, hypertension and stroke, as we've seen many celebrities have passed on with stroke, sleep apnea and sudden death with sleep apnea. Those are double-digit percentage complication rates. And so you can't live in a bubble and say, I'm worried about this, and ignore the potential for neuropathy, losing toes, losing fingers, blindness, cardiac malignancies and cancers, which have been demonstrated to be substantially increased based on overweight. So we really work together as a team, whether it's from the very beginning to people that, I don't want to say the very end, but from the very beginning to people that are struggling with chronic disease processes, and make sure that we interrupt that as soon as we can.
Well, you're not going to believe this, but we're almost out of time. We could talk about this for a very long time.
Start the clock over.
But we want to invite the community to your open house. So that is Friday, June 21st, out at door 4 now. I'm not going to go in 3 again, but at Founders Hall, which is it's absolutely beautiful. So go in the door, go to the right, and you will see the new Weight Management Institute there. So from noon to 1 is a lunch and learn, a complimentary lunch and learn. And so we'll learn more about the Weight Management Institute. And then at 1 o'clock, we're doing a ribbon cutting with us. And we'll hope you'll be there too. Yeah. And then a ribbon cutting at 1 o'clock, and then a tour of the facility, and I think you'll be very impressed with that. I have a bench with my name on it now out there. I'm teasing. Okay. So anyways, we really so appreciate not only you being with us, but all that you do, because truly sending out a lifeline for many, many people. So
Absolutely, and one last thing, Tess, if you could give maybe a tip or two from a dietary standpoint, anything you would say, that 1 or 2 simple things that the public could do to just not quickly, but help start down the path of changing their life?
Yeah, so I would say number 1, definitely try to decrease consumption of processed foods.
Okay.
I think that goes back to what Dr. Walls was saying earlier about the food industry, and we really got to decrease our consumption of processed foods, whether it's boxed cereal or rice, crackers, pastas, things like that. Do the best that you can to try to eliminate those things or even replace them with healthier options, such as zucchini noodles. There's also healthier alternatives to rice like quinoa. So that's definitely a healthier alternative. And number 2, just definitely try to focus on more wholesome foods. So fruits and vegetables, definitely got to incorporate those into a healthy lifestyle. So those would be my two suggestions.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. A great program. You can hear the passion in your voices, and that you're there to help people. So it's great to hear.